Have you ever been jolted awake by a terrifying dream? Heart pounding, mind racing? If you have, you know a nightmare is so much more than just a bad dream. It can totally hijack your rest and even haunt your waking hours. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into what's happening and how you can actually take back control of your nights. I want to start with this question, because if this hits home for you, you know exactly what I mean. It's that awful feeling when sleep, the very thing that's supposed to restore you, becomes a source of anxiety and, well, even fear.
And let's be real, this isn't about feeling a little groggy in the morning. This is a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. It comes from your body being stuck in high alert mode all night long. So if this is you, you're not exaggerating, and you are definitely not alone.
Okay, so to really get a handle on nightmares, we first have to understand what we're actually up against. They aren't just random mental noise, They're a very specific neurological and psychological event. So let's break down what's really going on inside your head.
It's super important to make a key distinction right here. A nightmare, which is what we're focused on, happens during REM sleep. You wake up from it, and you remember the scary story in pretty vivid detail. Night terrors? That's a whole different beast. They happen in deep sleep and might involve screaming or thrashing around, but the person usually has no memory of it at all. Knowing the difference is pretty crucial.
This quote, it really hits the nail on the head. You might be in bed for a full 8 hours, but the nightmares just shred your sleep quality. They keep jolting you awake, kicking off a real fight-or-flight response. Your heart races, stress hormones surge, and that stops your brain from getting the deep, restorative rest it's crying out for. So if they aren't just random, then what are they? This is where we kind of need to shift our whole perspective. What if instead of seeing nightmares as an attack, we learn to see them as a message, like a signal from our own mind trying to tell us something important? And those signals, they're often triggered by very real things happening in our lives when we're awake. The usual suspects can be anything from stress and trauma to certain medications. But even physical things, like being sick or eating a big meal right before bed, can mess with your sleep and open the door for nightmares. So the big takeaway here is this. A nightmare is basically your brain working overtime. It's trying to process emotions or experiences that are just too much to handle during the day. So you see, it's not just a disturbance, it's actually valuable information about what's going on with you, emotionally and physically.
Okay, now that we kind of get the what and the why, let's get to the good stuff, the how. It's time to build your toolkit with some practical, proven strategies you can use to manage these things and finally reclaim your sleep.
Look, everything starts with a solid foundation of good sleep hygiene. I know, these habits might seem basic, but trust me, they are incredibly powerful. A consistent sleep schedule gets your body's clock in rhythm. Avoiding things like caffeine or huge late-night meals prevents disruptions. And a relaxing bedtime routine? That's like sending a signal to your brain that says, hey, it's safe to power down.
Journaling can be a total game changer. By just jotting down what happened during your day and how you slept, you can start to connect the dots and spot your own personal triggers. And you can even take it a step further. After a nightmare, write it down, but then actively rewrite the story. Give it a new, better, less scary ending.
Now, that rewriting idea is actually the core of what's known as the gold standard treatment for chronic nightmares, Imagery Rehearsal Therapy, or IRT. It sounds fancy, but it's a really simple but profound process. Step 1, write down the nightmare. Step 2, consciously rewrite the ending to be something positive or even just neutral. And Step 3, this is the magic part, mentally rehearse that new version for a few minutes every day. You're literally reprogramming the dream script in your mind.
Now, while these tools are powerful, it's also really important to know when it's time to call in some professional help. If nightmares are happening more than once a week, if they're causing you major distress or making you exhausted, or if they're tied to any physical movement, that's a clear sign it's time to talk to a doctor or a therapist. The main point is, you do not have to go through this alone.
So, what do you do in the moment? You wake up, it's dark, your heart is pounding out of your chest. Right then, having a plan is everything. Let's walk through the immediate steps you can take to calm your nervous system and get back to sleep.
The very first thing you need to do is pull your brain out of that dream world and anchor it firmly in the here and now. Your brain needs a crystal clear signal that the threat is over and that you are safe. Right here, right now.
One of the best ways to do this is with a simple sensory exercise called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Just look around your room and name 5 things you can see. Then notice 4 things you can physically feel, maybe the texture of your blanket or the cool wall next to you. Then listen for 3 sounds,
Identify 2 things you can smell, and finally, 1 thing you can taste. This little trick forces your brain to focus on the real, tangible safety of where you are.
And try to avoid just lying there in the dark stewing in it. If you can, get up for just a few minutes. Go to another room, a calm space, maybe read a couple pages of a boring book or listen to some quiet music. The goal is to break that mental link between your bed and the feeling of fear and instead reinforce that you are in a safe, peaceful place.
All right, as we start to wrap this up, let's bring it all together. The goal isn't just to stop bad dreams. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship with them and with sleep itself. This is all about empowerment.
You know, this might be the single most important idea to take away from all this. When you reframe a nightmare as feedback instead of an attack, it starts to lose its power over you. It becomes a clue, a signpost pointing you toward what needs a little attention or healing in your life.
And ultimately, this is what it all comes down to. You don't have to do everything we talked about all at once. Just choose one thing to start with. Maybe it's setting a consistent bedtime. Or maybe it's just committing to trying that 5-4-3-2-1 technique next time. That single, intentional choice is the very first step toward transforming your nights and reclaiming the restful sleep you absolutely deserve.